And welcome back to Let It Rip, where we're back in studio tonight because we're welcoming a pair of very special guests. That is, except Charlie, of course, because he has COVID, but he is joining us via Skype. And we thank you so much for joining us, Charlie. Continue to feel better. I know you're feeling just fine. Ready to let it rip. Here now are former Detroit Police Chief James Craig and Oakland County businessman, the self-proclaimed quality guru, Perry Johnson. Of course, both of them are still running for the GOP nomination for governor. And you may recall late last month, both were also disqualified from the August primary after a discovery of forged petition signatures. We'll get to all of that in a moment. But first, Chief Craig, I understand you have an announcement you'd like to make exclusively here on Fox 2.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know, Roop, you and I had a conversation. Let me just say this. I'm not giving up. They have robbed me. They have robbed Perry. And guess what? Right in. There's so many people that have reached out through my campaign and said, Chief, you're a fighter. Don't give up. Continue to fight. We need you to do what you're doing. And guess what? I'm going to.
Can the next governor of the state of Michigan be someone who's a write-in candidate, Perry?
I think it's very difficult, practically speaking. People have a hard time remembering the name. You take a look, although it happened in the city, it's a much smaller universe. We have roughly 9.5, 10 million people in the state. So that's a lot of people to cover.
Yes.
And it makes it very, very difficult. I think you have to get on the ballot. That's why I filed in the court, federal court. And it's very interesting that we had the judge set the trial for the 14th. The only issue we have is that they want to start printing the ballots tomorrow. And we asked for a stay. So I'm hoping the judge grants that stay, because at the hearing before they said there's not enough paper to print another set of ballots. So they would come back and say, yes, you should be on the ballot, but we don't have any paper for you.
You think you have a fighting chance even with this stay?
I think we should be on the ballot. And as a practical matter, there are two things you have to keep in mind. First, you have a situation where we had 2,400 and some that they said were valid signatures. They then said, okay, we have a variety of reasons why we want to exclude them. When we asked that we didn't think they were right, we want to challenge them, so can we see them? They said, no, it's impossible. They couldn't produce them. Now, I ask you, here you are, I convict you, I'm saying you're charged with murder, but I can't tell you who you killed. As a practical matter, they should give you a right to at least defend yourself.
To look at the evidence that they're accusing you of this forgery. Chief Craig, let me ask you a question. When you take a look at moving forward here, you heard Perry Johnson say you need the name. You got millions of people in the state of Michigan. You're on the network on Fox News pretty often.
Yes.
People know you in this country. They know you in this state now. Do you have enough name recognition to be a successful write-in candidate?
Absolutely. I absolutely have enough name recognition. But you know what I think? Perry and I need to be partners, because we want to clean out the swamp. And let me just say this. This is crap. You know it's crap. I have been approached by so many folks across the state who have called me and said, Chief, continue to fight. I got emails, text messages through my campaign that says, Chief, we know you were robbed. And you know what? I'm not going to roll over, because this is not about me as a candidate. This is more about the voters of Michigan. They deserve to have the best candidate. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to win. I am the best candidate to unseat Governor Whitmer.
Chief, Charlie Langton, let's bring you into the fold here. You're listening to the chief right now. Your thoughts?
Wait a minute. I just want to hear. I know the announcement the chief said he's going to be a write-in. That's a good announcement. Let me ask the Perry Johnson though. You're going to fight in federal court, but if you lose, will you join the chief? Maybe even be his running mate. Will you endorse the chief?
The reality of the matter is, as a practical matter, I'm a statistician, and I have to tell you that I look at the facts. Winning as a write-in, I know Chief is optimistic, When you take and analyze what needs to be done, it would cost, I estimated, approximately $22 million in order to accomplish this. And that's to put us at a position where we are at a severe disadvantage going into all the people that are on the ballot. But what I want to argue is the fact that they should not have excluded what we had. I'm going to give you these. For example, these are petitions that I did not turn in. Look at them.
All right.
Okay? They
Line
would
by
have
line.
said this is no good because the lines are crossed out. But
You have a couple crossed out lines here.
right,
all right.
and they claim that's no good. Now, these are all filled out.
Yep.
Notice they're all filled out? And you can call every one of them. They're all legitimate signatures.
Go ahead and have a seat with these.
Why
yeah.
did I not turn them in? I didn't turn them in because the font wasn't exactly right. Now, we both hire consultants. They are the ones that know the petitioners, right?
Yes.
So we hire them, they hire the petitioners, and they know what they're doing. I saw them looking over all of these petitions, and they scrutinize them. How are we going to ever tell if we have a forged signature if we do not have access to the signature? Think about it.
But Gary,
how would you know?
Let me ask you this. You ran your campaign, you spent millions of dollars on television talking
did.
about how, for all of your career, you've been the quality control guy.
Yes.
How did the quality control of the petitions get past the quality control guy?
I don't think they're right. I'm going to ask you this question. Let's suppose we had Republicans just looking at the votes for Biden. No Democrats, just Republicans. They come back, they say 250,000 are no good. We're not going to show them to you, but you have to take our word for it. What do you think would happen in this country?
Well, there would be a lot of people who are really upset.
That's exactly what they did. The Democrats looked at them. They said, we looked at these, we decided that 10% of these are no good out of the 68,000, so we're going to throw them all away. The reality of the matter is, I would stake my life on the fact that half of those petitions at least are good. The reason I can't say more than half is that I didn't
Charlie,
get a chance to say.
Charlie, they're
Wait,
saying
I
they
gotta
weren't.
say
He's saying it
something.
wasn't gypped off.
No, I got to say something. Charlie, Ruth,
Go ahead, Chief.
can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. Let me just say this. I have been the candidate, double digits have led the GOP. In fact, you know, like I know, I was in a dead heat with the incumbent governor. And with independents, I was ahead. So let me just say this. I'm a cop. Been a cop all my life. Perry and I, we were hook-winged. Let me just say this.
Do you really think
Perry-
all of your ballots, all of your petitions were bad?
No, they weren't.
So Charlie, they're saying there wasn't fraud
we
here.
need to talk
Here's
about
what I
this.
want to get
Let me,
Chief,
Here,
Charlie,
let
Charlie.
Chief,
Let Charlie come here just for a
is
minute.
this-
Go ahead, Charlie.
Is this, listen, I understand the hoodwink stuff. I understand you should be on the ballot. But do you think that this was some kind of a Democratic plot to get the two of you off the ballot?
Come on, Charlie. Let me just say what I think as a cop. I've been a cop all my life. I don't think it's just Democrat. Let me just say this, and I'll put this out in one of my Republican opponents, she filed the first attack. So, and the reason why she filed the attack, she was getting 2-3% of the vote. I was in the 34 percentile. So it wasn't just Democrats. It was a Republican candidate who now they're trying to tout as the person that can run against Gretchen Whitmer. Let me just say this to you. I was a candidate. I can win as governor of the state of Michigan, not her. And you know.
But Chief, why did no one challenge Governor Whitmer's signatures? Was that oversight?
Oh wait, and you know what? I got to tell you, Root. Thank you for asking that question. She had 30,000. Was it 30,000?
Yep.
30,000. That's the money you're allowed.
How many of her signatures were good?
Well, why didn't you challenge that? Why didn't you challenge that, Barry?
Well, but let me just say this.
The reality of the matter is, as a practical matter, I have not been involved in politics. I had no idea that they had this kind of a scheme going. Keep in mind, they knew that they were already going to exclude everything from this one petitioner and never told anyone. Now, how reasonable is this? Think about it. And do you really think it's even reasonable that anybody can ever look at this, look at these and say, without looking at the signature, whether or not it's valid? And they're going to tell us all of
Let me
these are
just say
invalid?
this. Perry and I were the front runners. You know, and I mean, Root, I've been a front runner since I got into this. Double digit. I give it to Perry. He was running commercials every 5 minutes. I respect that. He was gaining on me. But at the same time, these other folks, let me just say this. The one person, the Republican candidate that launched an attack on me, guess what? 2 and 3%.
She wasn't even going to be on.
What
She
about,
wasn't
what
even
about
gonna
let's
be-
go, let's
She
go
wasn't
ahead and
even. Let's talk
let's
about
let's
that
throw out the
until we were
question
off.
about a guy named John Yob, who's is the elephant in the room right now.
You want to talk about John Yob?
I'd like you to ask you about John Yob.
Well,
what do you
I don't
think?
want to speak for Perry, but let me tell you something. Look, I've never been a politician. I don't know the mechanics of running a campaign. When I talked to John Yob,
John Yob, by the way, incidentally, for those who aren't familiar, helped with your campaign and then jumped ship.
he jumped ship with Perry.
Right.
But here's what I know, and I'm not going to speak for Perry. John Yob, when I talked about the petitions, no worries. Let me tell you something. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And when I peel back the onions, because I'm a cop, 44 years, I'm going to expose him because both Perry and I have the same issue. How in the heck does Perry have the same dirty petitioners working for both of us? There's a common denominator. Look, I'm a cop,
So John Yob
and I
is a
think.
crook? Chief.
Wait
are you saying
a
John
minute.
Yob is
Don't
a crook
interrupt me.
And the Democratic Party are crooks?
Wait.
Everybody.
He's saying, is John Yob a crook?
I'm not going to say he's a crook.
No,
I'm not going to say
there's
that.
no way that I think
I'm
John
not going
is
to
a
say
crook
that.
at all.
Here's what I'm going to say to you, Charlie. There's a common denominator.
hear him.
How does the same people doing Perry's petitioners, James Craig's petitions, oh my God.
Well, but three others too.
Look,
They kicked off 5
most
people, right?
know that there's some stink on this. I've been a cop all my life. Let me tell you something. Oh, I'm not done yet. I'm going to unearth it. But let me tell you what I'm breaking on your show. Yes, I'm going to run as a write-in because the people that have supported me, the momentum, I'm going to be the next
Do you
governor.
file suit if it doesn't work out?
No, let me just say this to you. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to run as the next governor of the state of Michigan. I'm going to file suit anyway. I'm going to file suit anyway.
I'm going to ask you a question that Charlie alluded to at the beginning
Yes.
here. If you use James Craig's name on a write-in and then he asks you to join him on his ticket, would you consider saying yes?
First
Would you
of
be
all,
his lieutenant governor? Would you consider it?
No,
Would you consider it, Perry? I'll let Perry
the
answer.
reality of the matter is, I'm not interested in being lieutenant governor. I ran to be governor.
My man. I love that.
I ran to
he
be
and I are
governor.
the same kind of guy.
That's it. We understand it. I go along with James Craig. I'm going to tell you once again, the reality is that all of the 5 candidates that had these tossed off, they used a bunch of petitioners. Now, granted, I got into the race, February the 13th, I announced, right?
Perry,
So-
the chief wants your money. He doesn't want your money.
Hey, wait,
Well, guys,
Charlie.
we got to take a break. We're going to come back.
Don't take a break.
We're going to take a
Charlie,
break.
can
and
we
when we
say
come
one
back,
thing?
we're going to have final thoughts with James Craig coming up after the
Look,
break. Stay with us.
Okay.
Final thoughts with Perry.
I don't think we can let the Democrats decide who should be on the ballot. And there's absolutely no question in my mind that we have a lot of valid signatures, but there's no way anyone can ever say how you can decide a signature without looking at the voter file. We need to change the election process. We need to change the petition process, and that's why I'm running for governor.
Let's see what the judge says, of course, with the stay that you talked about.
The judge is going to have to make a decision.
Chief, you have 20 seconds.
I agree with Perry, but let me just say this. I am the candidate that can unseat Gretchen Whitmer. This is why I was targeted, not just by the Democrat Party. Let's not forget that one of my opponents, she filed the first attack.
You're talking about Tudor Dixon.
I'm talking about Tudor Dixon.
We're going to continue this conversation the next time we talk to you. We thank you both for joining us. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Let It Rip.